Everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. Well, good afternoon, beekeepers. It's good to see everybody here tonight. And I think we were all kind of rushing around to get here, so it's we've all made it pretty safely. If everybody's like me, it's been one hectic week. I mean, cutouts, beekeeping, making hives. I mean, it's been ongoing all week. So it's been nonstop. So it usually is this time of year with spring being here. And, I can't wait till I'm just start putting supers on everything and just letting it roll. So if I can get down there like Keith Spillman, where he's just stacking them up 10 high, 12 high, however high he's got them down there, that would be great. But we'll get there. Anyway, Melissa, how's your week been so far?
Pretty rainy.
Yeah.
We've been doing the bees in the rain at least one day this week. We were trying to get everything out of Nukes because they were busting at the seams, and we're kind of out of equipment. We only had a handful of 8-frame equipment left over, and we had did an order from Daniel at Golden Bee, and we got that Tuesday, I believe, but we can't use it yet because it needs to be dipped. So we're still out of equipment as of right now. We have it, but it's not usable. So we were just trying to go through all of our nukes and put a nuke deep on those. So we got that done in 2 yards. And then today it was starting to rain. And luckily by the time we got to the bee yard, it kind of cleared off a little bit. But we were going through some walkaway splits that we had there. And we had, probably 15 or so walkaway splits there, roundabout, and fine frame Jester Easy Nuke boxes. And so the virgins, if they had made virgins, should have been emerging. So we're going through those, checking to see if we had mated queens or not. And we're going through, and they all have virgins, but literally the virgins were hatching as we're looking through them. So we harvested 30 virgins today just from going through all those hives, like from the walkaway splits, because most of them had multiple capped queen cells. And you could tell, some of them, we watched the virgin pop out as we're examining the frame. And then so we look at these other cells and you can see their little legs and antenna sticking out. So you just take your little Tom's little no, because the hive tool is still not sharp enough and too thick. So he'll use his a knife that he keeps in his truck and just kind of scrape the cap off, and it pops right off, and she walks right out. And now we put them in these hair roller cages here. And we always keep about 10 of these on the truck with us, right? So we ran out, and I'm like, we need more because we still had 5 or 6 hives to go through. So where this particular yard is, there's a Dollar General right down the road. And so I ran to Dollar General and I grabbed a bunch of little cheap stick containers. So now we've got it's ridiculous.
Whatever it takes. That's awesome.
So we've got just a ton of we have a ton of virgins available if anybody needs a virgin and is in the St. Louis area. Message us.
I built 50 nukes. Well, I was working on 50 nukes before we went live, so I could use at least 30 of those.
Well, come on over. Hop in the jet and pick them up.
I
thought that was free delivery.
Yeah.
What's that?
For delivery.
That should be free delivery.
Free delivery, yeah. Come pick it up yourself. Free delivery. But yeah, these are really pretty queens. Like some of them are like you can't see it on the camera, obviously, but they're super, super light colored. And I really like that because they're easy to find on the frames, even if they're not marked. So I know it's kind of cool. It was busy.
Yeah, you guys are definitely killing it now. Man, that's unbelievable. So, Lee, man, how's your day been? Or how's your week been, I should say?
The week hadn't been too bad. Today was a little rough.
Yeah.
Let's just say I didn't sit in the crane since 8 o'clock this morning. I've been in the office, in meetings, at medical. I was sitting there this morning and I had another piece of equipment next to me that decided to move, and he come flying through my windshield and shot ended up in my lap. So it shattered glass everywhere and come in on me. So
yeah, when you get a chance, put that up so everybody can see it, Lee. But right now, you can do it in a bit.
All right. Now, other than that, it's been a pretty good week. Got a couple of storms came through here. We was knocked out of power for about 20 hours. So we was using the old kerosene lantern to move around. And we got another storm moving in right now. So hopefully with this rain that we're getting, we'll have plenty of nectar flowing with the tallow. It's just I'm worried about if it's going to blow the tassels off of the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish it would just stop raining here so it'd quit washing the nectar out. Like we were just pulling in the honey there for a while, and now this rain is just keeps washing everything out, and it's just slowed it down so much.
Yeah, the hive behind me right now is just absolutely humming. They're trying to, dilute that nectar down to turn it into honey. It's been unreal. So I can really hear it. You guys probably can't, but it's pretty loud right now. So
it looks like you got a good population of bees in it right now.
Yeah. I'll let y'all look at it real quick. It's really, really growing. So I'm very, very pleased with it.
Yeah, they're covering those combs pretty well there, aren't they?
Yeah,
they drawing out really any new comb?
Yeah, there's 3 new combs there actually. So yeah, it's really, really taking off right now. And I was having that moisture problem on that hive also, and I put a hole in the very top up there, and I started thinking I've never had moisture problem as bad as I did until I drilled that hole. So I put a piece of tape in it, and it fixed my moisture problem. I think the cold air was running down by the hive, down that glass from inside the house, causing it to cool the hive down, causing the condensation. So that really surprised me. So it makes me think about an upper entrance. Does it do the same thing inside of a regular hive? So something to think about.
I would think as long as you don't have the cold AC unit going into it. An outside hive now during the winter time, if you run in it, you may be getting that cold air drafting in across the warm bees and create a little bit of condensation that way.
Right. Correct. Yep. So, Spanky, what's going on off the mountain?
Not too much. Been raining a lot.
Yeah. I think everybody's seen the rain everywhere.
It's crazy.
Keith Spillman said down there where he's at, which is pretty close to where Spanky's at, where they're kind of both off the mountain, kind of the same area. But this rain's killing the flow for him. So it was booming down there where he was at.
Yep, that sounds about like us. It was booming, and now it's like today. You know how you can tell if there's a flow when you throw some honey or put something you want the bees to clean up out in the yard and they don't even touch it, right? Then you know your flow is on because they don't want that honey. They want to go out and get fresh nectar. Well, today when we were going through those nukes, Tom was scraping some honey off the top of some frames where they built like burr comb that they'd filled with honey and put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and the bees were just like all over it. They were devouring it. So clearly, everything's just getting washed out here.
You seen that down where you're at, Spanky? Everything's just getting washed out for your bees down there?
Well, I mean, I've been feeding them sugar water and they've been taking it. So,
Okay.
I hadn't seen them not take any sugar water.
Right. Well, that's definitely saving some of the hives. Probably. We did 2 cutouts this week, and both of the cutouts were brand new swarms, and they had no nectar in them whatsoever and very low pollen. And I'm assuming that's just due to all this rain that we've been getting here lately. So
I think that's what's going to be hurting me this weekend, because pretty much all day tomorrow and then part of Saturday, we're going to be getting a lot of rain. So the ground's going to be wet. And I think that's going to hold me up from getting to my other bee yards to get everything loaded up, brought back to the home yard.
I think about everybody in the chat's talking about rain also. So it's amazing. It's like it's not just Eastern Seaboard or in the South. It seems like it's everywhere right now. So
yeah, I guess it rained all morning. What time did it quit raining today, Tom? Like 10 o'clock this morning-ish? Oh, that's right. It was still like sprinkling after that. But then they're calling for more rain tomorrow. So it's like, just stop already.
We was waiting for spring to get here so bad and warm up, and now we've gotten it warm, but it just won't stop raining. So
I know. I
so
think
Lee,
somebody,
go ahead, Melissa.
I saw like somebody had a meme or a post on Facebook the other day. I can't remember who it was, or what group it was or whatever. It said something like, you know how it's usually April showers bring May flowers? And it said April showers bring May showers. It's like, never ending.
No doubt. Lee, you got a picture of that little accident that was there? I think DC was asking about it just a minute ago. So
it come through the front windshield. They done got everything moved out of the way, but it come through the windshield, bent the corner of the cab up.
Gosh.
And had glass all the way behind the seat, all down my shirt. It was an interesting morning.
You didn't get injured.
Wonder you didn't get hurt.
A couple little pieces of glass on like the cheek and my hands, but I just popped them out. And they kept asking, "You okay? You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Well, you need to go to medical.
How much am I going to get paid if I'm not okay?
Well, I kind of joked about that. I said, "I'm fine. I'm fine." Whoa, hold on. How much money you got?
Yeah.
And they looked at me. I said, "Nah, I'm good." And they want to know if I need medical. I'm like, "Nah, I don't need none of that. I'm good." But later they ended up making me go anyway, just so that it's on paperwork, I guess.
Yeah. Was it just was it a piece of metal that hit from the other machinery, or was it actually the machine?
It was the machine itself.
Did you see it?
Basically, they got stuck and they were trying to get out of a rut.
Oh.
And they had the wheels turned real hard one way. So when it finally caught traction and went to moving, it took off and it come flying around sideways. And basically you got the wheels here and then a long boom that sticks out, and that boom come flying around and come through the windshield with me.
Wow.
They wanted to get you out of the rut of that crane seat.
I think the other guy that hit me, he was more upset and scared than I was. He was looking at me hollering all kind of stuff like, "You okay? You okay?" I'm just giving him thumbs up. I'm like, "I'm good."
Yeah.
And I'm still sitting here. I ain't falling out of the cab or bleeding, so ain't no use hollering.
So how long will it take them to replace that glass in there?
I don't know if they keep them in stock at the rental company or if they're gonna have to order one. I figure maybe a day or two. But with the weather coming in tomorrow, I don't know if they'll make it. So they put Visqueen and all over it and taped everything up today.
Okay. Well, I'm just glad you're okay. And like DC said, you've got a guardian angel looking out for you, brother. So.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to our guest speaker. We got Justin Ruger with us here. And Justin, if you will, just tell us a little bit about your beekeeping history and kind of what you do and your, kind of your not your niche, but what you do for other beekeepers, I guess you might say. So go ahead and explain a little bit about what you do, brother.
All right, thanks, Ricky. I appreciate you guys having me on today. I started with writing children's books about beekeeping, and it started off with the children's book Henry Meets a Honeybee that teaches about the queen, the drone, the worker bee, the jobs in the hive, pollination. And then I worked on 2 other books that actually teach about beekeeping that are kind of like a follow in the series from Henry Meets a Honeybee. And that's actually where I met Ricky the first time, was at the Hive Life conference in Sevierville, Tennessee. And, everyone was Terry at Garden Bee Apparel and John Hill at Hillco. They were all talking about how I should start a nonprofit. And the first thing that I wanted to do was continue the work with children, honeybees and beekeeping and children. So I started looking into how hard it was to put a hive into schools, and there was way too much red tape that I wanted to deal with allergies and safety precautions. So at the time when I met Ricky, I was in a wheelchair full time from a stroke. So he actually was great in helping me get further into my beekeeping, because he donated one of his hives to the nonprofit that we started, or that I started and founded, which was Accessible Beekeeping. And part of what we do is we work with universities and companies to do research and design and different things like that to make more accessible hardware and hive systems, and get the name out, get it out there that it is possible to be a beekeeper and be disabled at the same time.
And you also had guest speakers on, and you had a little channel that you did some of the live chats like we're doing here tonight, and you had a lot of really interesting people come on. I'll never forget the lady that came on that couldn't hear, and or not, she couldn't hear.
She couldn't see.
She couldn't see. That's what it was. She couldn't see. She could hear and taste and smell, and she talked about the differences in the hive and how she was telling me stuff. It's like, wow, I can't believe that she's hearing that, or she can, a lot of times you hear beekeepers, well, I can tell that this hive is queenless by the way it sounds, right? Or she can tell where the nectar flow was coming in by how it smelled. She could tell if it was, sick, by the way it smelled. So she couldn't see, but her disabilities actually allowed her to enhance her beekeeping, and which was just absolutely amazing. And I really like some of the work you're doing with those people, because what it does is it pushes the market or the vendors to think outside the box, right? What do I do to make it easier for somebody in a wheelchair, right? And not only do you do it with someone in a wheelchair, maybe someone missing a hand or whatever. So then I might design a hive that's just easy all the way around, right? Maybe it has shocks on my hives and allows the lids to come up on them, right? So it pushes the industry a little farther, right? Someone with a disability might see something that us normal beekeepers don't see, and that's what I love about when you had your channel talking to people. So I do appreciate you, all that you've done so far, and that you continue to do, and you continue to go and talk and speak to other people about disabilities. And we don't want to leave nobody out of beekeeping. Man, I want everybody to enjoy it. So it's great what you're doing there, Justin. I appreciate that, brother.
I thank you, and I very much appreciate the work that you did. When Ricky said that he could make a horizontal hive that tilted, for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to access it. You know, we had to brainstorm because there wasn't really anything on the market that he could even follow. So he had to start. There was a lady in New Mexico just this past week that messaged me, and she was like, "Hey, you know, I'm giving a talk about accessible beekeeping to my bee club." So I sent her my slides and everything, and she texted me back and she was like, "Hey, you know, I want more information on that tilting hive and, you know, how it was built, where it was coming from." And I was like, that was the first one of its kind. Like, that's why there's nothing out there. And she
Right.
was like, wow. She's like, now that I've seen your videos and stuff. So she was really excited to learn more about, you know, what you did and everything. But I also appreciate you being cool to opinions and changes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the first one, you know, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but the first one, you know, that was designed, it didn't have that catch on it.
Yep, that's correct.
So if you didn't, I mean, none of us thought about it, but if you didn't
Right.
have a good hold on the hive, and it started to spin, there was nothing stopping it from just flipping upside down.
Correct.
So, you know, the president of the nonprofit, Thomas DeGan, he did some updates on that, and then the way we had the lid with the cord coming around under the bottom, when it was on the ground, it was hard for someone in a wheelchair to get a hold of that cord to hold the lid up. So I know Thomas worked on that and put some updates on holding the cord up so somebody in a wheelchair could access it easier. Yeah, so I really appreciate you doing that. I know Terry at Guardian Bee Apparel, he just made a mitten for somebody who was a veteran who couldn't use their right arm.
Wow.
So he couldn't get his hand into the glove with the 5 fingers. So Guardian Bee Apparel actually made a special glove for him that was a mitten that zipped up all the way, and he could put his hands in there. And I'm working with Florida National Agribilities chapter, and one of the things that we talked about was designing a glove that would help somebody hold like a hive tool or something if they didn't have the dexterity in their hand, but they had like the strength in their arm to be able to maneuver the tool. So he came and so I sent Terry the kind of idea of what we're looking for, and that's one of the things that he's looking into doing, is redesigning that. I know there was or one of the things that Accessible Beekeeping did last year is we worked with Brian Wentz. Sorry, he's a professor at Shippensburg University. And we did a survey a year ago, 2 years ago. It was the first exploratory survey in beekeeping about disabilities in beekeeping. And one of the things that we found was that you can read the paper on the on my website, accessiblebeekeeping.org. It was finally published in Including Disability issue 3. So there's a link to that, and the actual PDF of the talk is on the website. But we had 500 responses, and what we did, we sent out a survey that had a bunch of questions and answers. People reported what their disabilities were and, you know, how they adapted things. And one of the things that we found was that out of 500 responses, we had 40% of those said they had some type of disability that made beekeeping difficult. And then out of those, I think it was like 240 responses that said beekeeping was difficult, said that there was about 80% of them said that if their disability got a little bit worse, or their disability actually kept them from being a beekeeper and they wanted to be a beekeeper, or they aged out of beekeeping because they didn't have a way to continue doing what they were doing with their different limitations. So that is finally published, and that's on our website at accessiblebeekeeping.org. What else have we done? Oh, you mentioned the blind woman in California that was on the podcast that we did.
Yeah.
So one of the things that she did was she took pictures using VoiceOver, which is an accessibility feature on iPhones, and she would send those pictures to a sighted beekeeper, and the sighted beekeeper would look at the pictures and tell her things that she would not have been able to visually see. And part of what came from that was because before I had my car accident and stroke and stuff that put me on this disability journey, I was a computer engineer and computer scientist, and then I was getting my PhD in nuclear physics. So after my disability, I kind of got away from the physics and everything, and my programming started to come back. And one of the things that I worked on was an app that I'm working on currently is an app called Be My Hive Inspector.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a application that uses artificial intelligence to help inspect the hive for somebody with lower vision or new beekeepers. I'm going to see if my background doesn't cut out this, but this is one of the pages. Hold on, let me see if I can turn this back around. No, I'm sorry.
Is that on your website?
Yeah, it's on my website.
Okay, he just put your website up, so that's awesome.
Okay,
Yeah,
where at on your website is it? I can pull it up on screen.
Okay. It is. There should be a tab called BMIH.
Yep.
And Justin, while he's doing that, something I want people to understand is like that rotating hive. When you called me, not only did you call me and say, "Hey, Rick, can you do this?" You actually got me in touch with an engineer or something like that from Florida. And we were all three talking together as a group. So you kind of put a hive builder together with an engineer and let's come together and build something. And that's just incredible. And you've been doing that with several different people. And that's what's awesome about you, because you can put things together and bring people together to build something for these people that are maybe disabled that need some help. So, man, we appreciate it. There we go.
Justin, I think you were talking about that app when you were in St. Louis last summer at the Hiveorama conference. I think I remember.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. Tom and I were there at that little gathering.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it there. I think you were still working out some kinks with it. Like you were doing some testing or something at that time, maybe.
Yeah, it's still in testing. I did not realize how much you had to put into training an artificial intelligence model and collecting the images and videos and data from everyone all over the United States has been harder than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
So, I did enjoy going to Hiveorama, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to make it this year. I'm hoping to, but he says he's doing it again, so we'll see. Because I'm in Florida now instead of Virginia, so it's much further away.
Yeah.
But so this is the Be My Hive Inspector app. You can see on the left photo that it is identifying the queen. It also identifies other things like worker brood, queen cells, pollen, honeycomb, and everything. So I know there, if you go up a little bit, I have a list of, there you go, right there on the right. This is the representation of current images that I have in training the model that I'm making. So you can see that I have a lot of pictures of worker brood, larva, capped honey, and pollen. I have okay amount of pictures in drone brood and things like that, but the things that are lacking and will be less detected in the app are the ones that are underrepresented. So I'm always looking for people to send in images in those underrepresented categories, so that they can help. You can go and upload and submit photos on right there on the website. And then
wow.
I think if you go to the bottom of the page, there are some videos there. Play the Queen one, the second one from that one. So this is actual video of the app tracking a queen as she's laying eggs on the frame, and it's actually tracking the queen and telling, being able to pick out the queen, and the number that's beside the queen bee title is actually the amount of confidence that the application has in its detection. So the more pictures that we get and the more that we train the application, the higher that confidence would be and the less false negatives that we'll actually have or issues. I think there's a couple more videos if you want to, like the larva one on the left. That one is just a quick one that shows that it's like detecting larva. So there's the application has 3 modes. It's live video, so you can scan the frame with your camera and it'll do the detection while it's doing live photo. It has image upload, so you can upload an image that you've taken and see what it pulls off of the frame. And then you have video analysis as well. So if anybody's interested in testing it or sending pictures or anything, there is links at the top on how to download it on Android and iOS. I'm putting a disclaimer out there that it's not perfect, and there are going to be some errors and things until we can actually work on getting more images into the model and perfecting that.
So if we wanted to send you pictures for your model to help with that, do we send those through this right here, the upload and submit right there, or is it?
Depending on the amount. If you have a lot of photos and you want to send them as like a bulk folder, then you could just contact me through the website and we could do like an iCloud or a Dropbox folder or something like that I could just download straight from. If you just went out and tested the app on a few photos and you saw somewhere that there were issues, then you can upload them here. I think it's 10 images is the limit for the website upload. So, if you want to send 20 images, you would have to do that twice.
And what was the website address again?
accessiblebeekeeping.org. So we have if you go on that website, you can see the exploratory paper. That's up there, so you can go and read the paper if you're interested. Eddie's Orchard in Indiana is a nonprofit for veterans. They actually had me design some infographics. So if you have anybody interested in beekeeping, you could send them, these PDF infographics, and they could get an idea of beekeeping and the pests that beekeepers deal with. We have the experimental apiary right now. It's in Virginia, and it's got Ricky's hive, and it's got a Layton's hive from Bearsville Bees. So we're going to work on bringing those down to Florida because I just moved in November. So when you guys are talking about cold weather, and April and May, we're sitting at 95 degrees here now.
And probably
Dustin, not to make you feel bad, but we had frost on the windshield. Well, the windshield turned to ice on Monday here. It was crazy.
Dang.
Yeah, but I mean, other than that, we've done we've partnered with Purdue University and University of Florida. And what we're doing is we're having people who need information, or not information, but things developed for them. We're talking to the seniors in the engineering and departments at these universities, and they are doing their capstones on, things to help the beekeeping community be more accessible. And, sometimes the project they do, it seems like something to take further. And then other times, it's not something that, the way they solve the problem might not work the best, but it's getting future generations of engineers and, thinking about, accessibility and beekeeping and just any kind of agricultural endeavor that they might be interested in past their college career.
And do you deal a lot with Hives for Heroes with those guys also, Justin?
I haven't. I want to. I'm actually one of the things I want to talk to was the grant that I just got. But we're actually going from Virginia to North Carolina to Florida, Georgia, and to Texas A&M. And one of the grants that the grant that we were awarded was the Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education Grant for Professional Development. And what we're doing is we're putting on training. So I'm gonna use the grant and buy a hive from Ricky, and a hive from an AZ Hive from North America's AZ Hives in Virginia, Top Bar Hives, all these different accessible hive options. And then we're going to put trainings and YouTube videos on using the hive and how it can benefit people with different disabilities and limitations and things that they have to work with. And they will then we'll travel to Virginia Tech, NC State, Texas A&M, the University of Florida, and we'll put these trainings on for professionals that are with like the USDA or National Agribility, and they are the ones that go out and do the analysis of what people can struggle with at their own agricultural farms and in beekeeping and stuff like that. So they'll go out and be able to train more people who are disabled in beekeeping, which we just had listed in National Agribility as a specialty enterprise.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, so it's a reimbursement. It's a reimbursement grant. So we're currently doing a fundraiser to raise, the starting value that we're going to use, and then when we use it to do things like buy a hive from Ricky and buy from different people and put the trainings together and be able to take all these hives to all these different states so people can see work that Ricky's done, work that Bearsville Bees has done, the glove that Guardian Bee Apparel made. We're taking them to all these professionals, and the professionals that go out on their daily jobs and help the consumers can say, hey, if you're in a wheelchair, this hive that tilts would be something perfect that could fit your needs. Or your hand is paralyzed, so reach out to this company and try this glove. So if we are doing a fundraiser on that, there's a donation link on the page, and if anyone's interested in sending $5, $10, your life savings, anything, we're more than happy. We're more than happy to accept and appreciate any help. We are a 501c3 registered with the IRS, so we have the EIN number there. Any donations that you do make, whether it's through a business or personal, are tax deductible. So that's just something that I want to put out there as well.
I think my wife's got my life savings tied up, Justin. So I'll see if I can.
I love hearing about all the companies that are working with you, like Ricky and Bearsville and Guardian, because those aren't huge companies. You know what I mean? They're not like I don't know, like Man Lake or
Man Lake.
Yeah. Well, whoever, they're not huge. I don't want to say nationwide because clearly Ricky sells hives nationwide, but you know what I mean? They're not huge companies, and they're these, family owned businesses. I mean, they all are family owned businesses that are taking their expenses, their time, their expenses to work with you and design something that's going to work for people with disabilities or different needs. And that, I know Terry and Ricky, and they all listen to their consumers. And that's what I love about some of these companies that we use, that are smaller, that are family owned. They really listen to their consumers, and they want to make things as accessible, for everybody as they possibly can. And I just love how much they listen to their customers, and they're willing to work with anybody to make things as right as they possibly can. So whoever wants to be in beekeeping can be in beekeeping.
Yep. And what that does, it just pushes the industry farther. You know what I'm saying? If somebody, let's say, let's take like Velcro or a zipper or something like that, right? That's used one hand, right? So that, maybe you can use that zipper on something else, or Velcro on something else, or a hinge on something else, and that can be applied to other products, and it just continues to make things better. So it just pushes the industry a little bit better. And I always say, if we can help any beekeeper out there to keep bees, let's do it. Right? It just makes it awesome.
Right.
Yeah. One thing that I always tell when I give my talks, because I go to conferences and I give talks about, the history of accessible beekeeping, and then the different hive systems that are on the market, and then how to design like an accessible apiary, is I always tell people that you have to stand up for yourself. Basically, you have to contact the companies and tell them that that you need something. So they have like Hilco. Hilco, he always supports accessible beekeeping, and he does everything he can. But if more people don't tell him that, hey, a tilting extractor would be necessary, then I understand from a business point of view, it's not smart to put resources or effort into something that might not help when there's already one on the market from I think it's Lyson that has it. But if more people come out and say, hey, Hilco, this type of product, or Guardian Bee Apparel, this type of product, or even Ricky at Horizontal Bees, this might help. It's important to know that when you do talk to, like you said, when you do talk to these companies, that it is heard, and they do everything they can to make a difference through their consumers and what their consumers need.
Well, and if you think about it, like you were saying, you tell people you have to stand up for yourself and make your needs known, right? Well, if John doesn't know, because he's not affected by any of this in his own life, so if he doesn't know that there's a need, how is he supposed to make equipment to help, make something accessible for somebody? So yeah, you have to let people know that you need this, because otherwise they have no idea that there's even a need there for specialized equipment or things like that. Like if you wouldn't have said something to Terry about the glove issue, like he never would have had a clue that somebody needed a specialized glove, that was even a thing. So yeah, that's really important to let the people making these different products know that, hey, is there a possibility that you guys can work on making this, or make some adaptation so that it's accessible this way or that way.
And that's what's good about Justin right there, is that he's touching those people that have disabilities, right? And he's saying, hey, this is what you need to do. So that just continues to get what needs to be done out there to the vendors that are trying to supply equipment to people. So that's what I like about Justin. Again, just making those connections and getting things rolling. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I just wanted to make sure that I clarified that Hilco is doing amazing with helping the accessibility community. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, like, I wasn't trying to like say anything. No, I wanted to clarify that he's doing amazing things. But if people don't go to him, and say, hey, we'd really like a tilting extractor. If I was a business person, I wouldn't try to make a tilting extractor either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I mean, John is another one that just has amazing customer service.
He does.
Like, he's just way above, anytime we've dealt with John, he's just great. So
he's always willing to help out, and he's getting to be bigger in the industry, but he still has that family. I'm going to help you no matter what. Kind of.
If something's wrong, John's going to do his best to make it right. Like, that's,
you hit it on the head. Yep.
That's all there is about it. Yeah.
Yep. So. Well, Justin, what's your goals for this year? What's your plans on where do you want this to go to? I mean, what's your ultimate goal with accessible beekeeping? I mean, I know you're starting to get to be out there nationwide. People are getting to know who you are, but I mean, what's your goals? For this and beekeeping.
Yeah, so the first goal was to get this grant. That was a big thing. The first time I applied for it, I did not receive it. They kind of gave me a lot of good feedback about, because at first I was like teaching beekeeping, and then they were like, well, there's too many people out there that teach beekeeping. And then the second time I'm like, well, we're going to teach accessible beekeeping. And they're like, oh, great. So we'll accept you. But then they were like, oh, well, maybe you should add teaching beekeeping to your grant as well. But
right.
Yeah, so with the grant, I want to spread the word of accessible beekeeping, and some of these smaller companies like Ricky and how they're helping the accessible market with beekeeping. I am going to spend the next year pretty much putting on the trainings on YouTube of the different hive types and things that the gloves and tools on the market that are available for making beekeeping accessible, and then working on going out to travel to do these trainings. I kind of haven't gotten to a point where I can give more talks that I haven't already said. So I'm hoping over the next year or two, more experience and research and things that I'm doing and people that I'm working with will allow more information to go into talks, so that I'm not, kind of regurgitating the same thing at multiple conferences. I hope on getting University of Florida is one that's really helped. They've given me, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 photos already, and but the way they did it is they took photos of with bees on the frame and bees off the frame, and sometimes the frames that are full of bees are harder to detect. So even though they gave me like 4,000 or 5,000 photos, it still only made about 2,000 of them useful for training the model. So I want to get the model to a point where it's making its detections at about 70 to 80% accuracy, and not having as many false detections. Because the queen, there's a slight, to the human eye, there's more of a difference between a queen and a worker bee or a drone. But when you're trying to train a computer to pick up that little difference, or the body and everything, it makes it you need to have more pictures of worker bees and queen bees. So I'm working on getting the application to something that can actually be useful.
Well, Justin, I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future. Even if it's, if it's your models that you're working with, look and see where that gets to. But also with your accessible beekeeping. And I think those two things will start going hand in hand. You'll need somebody that's disability that can use your program, and I think that'll work out really good. So I appreciate you coming on tonight, Justin. You're welcome to stick around. We're gonna turn to a little bit different topic here. Unless anybody in the chat got a question for Justin before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about these about EpiPen. I don't know if you know, but my wife did get stung again, so we're going to talk about that for just a second. Anybody got a question for Justin Ruger? And while we're waiting on that, somebody else had a question. This might be something good for Melissa to answer this question right here. So anybody's got anything for Justin Ruger, please leave it in the comment.
So packages do typically come with mated queens. Yes. The thing is that the mated queen isn't actually belong to the bees in the package though. So that's why you kind of have to, when you shake the bees out of the package, you have to leave her in that queen cage and let them acclimate to her. And then, you pull the cork and let them eat through that candy plug so that they can accept her. Packages aren't my favorite. I'd much rather have a nuke that has a mated queen that already belongs to that hive. So it's already a cohesive unit. Sometimes packages, you'll get that queen and they'll decide that they don't like that queen. I see a lot of supersedures happen with packages and queens. Just my own personal opinion and what we've observed in our own handlings with packages versus nukes. So, but yes, a package does come with a mated queen.
But have you ever heard of anybody selling a package with a unmated queen?
No.
Usually if that happens, and this is just my opinion, it's usually an amateur that does something like that. Not saying anything mean. It's just somebody that doesn't know that shouldn't really be done. I did have a gentleman that got sold a nuke that had a queen cell in it. Didn't even have a virgin run around in it. It just had a queen cell in it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was really trying to be nice and not, say that's not really what's supposed to happen. But they did say they got a discount on that hive because it didn't have a mated queen in it. So didn't try to make too big of a deal of it, but that's just my opinion about it. So
I mean, that's still a risk with just a queen cell, because is that a viable queen cell? Is that queen going to emerge? If it does emerge, she's still got to go out on a mating flight. Is she going to make it back from her mating flight? And when she gets back, is she going to be well mated? So that's a whole other.
And this is new beekeepers too. So that's what makes it even worse, because they ain't got a clue. They don't have another hive they can pull from, right? If they need some eggs to make sure this. So I don't like seeing that happen, but I think it does happen sometimes.
So when we first started beekeeping, we started with 3 hives, 2 nukes, and a package, purposely because we wanted to see the growth difference between, the package versus the nuke. The nuke immediately, the queen was gone. Whether they killed her, they must have. I think they superseded her, or they killed her, and then I think we were checking later. And again, mind you, we're brand new beekeepers. We have 0 experience besides classes that we'd taken. We later saw a mated queen in there. So I think when they shook the package, they shook a queen into the package.
Oh, wow.
Queen in the package plus the queen in the cage. So they killed the queen in the cage, right? Because she was marked, and there was no marked queen in the cage, and then there hadn't been enough time lapsed that another queen would have emerged, and so and we found a queen in there, and then I think they superseded that queen, and we probably spent $80 buying new queens trying to get this thing queen right, because then I think it went laying worker and it was just a whole mess. So after that, we're like, yeah, packages aren't our thing. We'll stick with the nukes. And we've heard other people have similar issues with like queens being superseded and just not accepting that caged queen that came in the package. So we prefer nukes over packages. But I think packages, Tom and I were actually just talking about this earlier. Packages serve a purpose. Like if any of you watch Ian Stepler's stuff, how he lost so many colonies last year, and he bought a bunch of packages and repopulated a bunch of his hives, right? Or his colonies. And I think they serve a great purpose with that because number one, Ian Stepler already had a crap ton of drawn frames that he could, pour those packages into, that he didn't have to wait for them to draw all this comb and whatnot. So I think they're great for like if you have significant losses and just want to repopulate a hive. And by then you would have experience, so you could deal with a supersede your queen or queen issues and things like that. But as far as like starting out, I know a lot of people suggest new beekeepers get packages, and I personally don't agree with that. I just think nukes are easier for new beekeepers because they don't have as many issues personally. But yes, they come with mated queens.
Right. So Justin, excuse me, Tim and Hannah wants to know whereabouts you at in Florida?
Jacksonville.
So you're North Florida. You are near Dennis and Melanie Cruz. Mm-hmm. You're about an hour away from them.
And then Redfish there said, are you going to patent your app?
So I'm not sure what to do about that part because being a developer for Apple, they charge a yearly fee. And in order to get that waived as a nonprofit, you have to not have any sales or things on your app. So it's either, pay the developer fee and then be able to put the app out there as a way to raise money for the nonprofit, or keep it as a free thing and then hope people, help with donations and things to keep the nonprofit going. So it's kind of a catch-22 on deciding what to do with that. I have to look more into it and decide, what the best route to go is. And then there was one more question I saw. Oh no, that was it. Whereabouts in Florida?
Yeah. Yeah, Jacksonville's a very good place down there. I like Jacksonville. Melissa, Ryan from Flare Street's got a question for you.
$20 nukes. So that's Tom. That's Tom. Packing trucks is Tom's department.
Oh, that's Tom's department. Okay.
My advice would be in the back of a truck. Look, he's here.
Oh. Hey, Tom, just so you know, we start at 8 a.m., just so you know.
He was pulling a Ricky Rourke.
I started to snore over there for a minute, so you have to forgive me. I started to fall asleep. So just kidding.
Just push me out of the way, why don't you?
Scoot over, please. The main event's here.
Black eye incoming.
So 20 nukes in the back of a truck. So I would say have plenty of ventilation. The one thing that I've never packed several of them in the back of a truck, but what I have done is on the trailer, and I would layer them to where the nukes can be side by side so that you can strap them down well. And usually you can cut a board to length to put straps on the top of them to hold them down. That way you're not squishing them together this way and causing them to bow. I don't know if you're using a Pro Nuke or an Easy Nuke or Jester, whichever you want to call it. But what I would do is in between, if you're putting them end to end, what I would do is I would leave about 6 inches to 8 inches or so in between those. That way there can be airflow in the middle of them. For every row that you are stacking, if you stack a row going across, when you would go end to end, make sure again there's 6 to 8 inches, and do that on every one. If you are putting, if you're stacking them up more than a couple high, what I would do is use a pallet or something like that that'll give you a 4 to 6 inch even 8-inch distance in between. That way, again, there can be ventilation or airflow in between them. That would be the most important thing. I mean, those bees, as they're traveling and bouncing around, they're going to start to vibrate their wing muscles a little bit and create more heat. So you just need to be able to keep them cool. The third piece of advice that I would give anybody transporting nukes is make sure that the bee coverage is not too heavy. And that's going to sound really odd. But if you have to the point that there are so many bees inside there, it is possible to have them to overheat a little quicker. But I would think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would think that your evenings are probably still cool. Maybe, and I'm just guessing, maybe somewhere between
3-hour drive,
50 and 65 degrees. Tell me if I'm wrong there, but that'll also help. Netting is a good thing. You can also, if you're traveling at night, is best. You can leave the entrances open so that if they need to walk out a little bit to ventilate, that's always good. Sometimes they can kind of beard on the front just a little bit, usually like on the back side where the wind's not beating against them. But that tarp will help to slow down any air movement coming through there, but still allow it to be in the mid 40s. That'll be perfect, honestly. Some people might think that that's too cold, but it definitely will not be. They'll cluster up a little tighter, and you can probably leave the entrances open if need be. But I would think mid 40s, you could probably be pretty safe and not have to be concerned about it. Biggest thing is make sure that they're strapped well and they don't move. I would say once you start on your journey, pull over after about 10 or 15 miles. Just check all your bindings and make sure everything's good. And
you want to have them this way.
Correct.
Not this way.
Yeah. So that way the frame rests are front to back, not side to side. So if you have to hit the brakes or gas, they don't hit like this and potentially squish a queen. Always travel them front to back. And of course, don't drive like Mario Andretti.
Or like Melissa.
Or like Melissa. I think we had a picture here, if I'm not mistaken, a week ago, maybe 2, of an extended cab door that had some kind of damage. I don't remember. It's a vague memory, but we don't know. It may have happened.
Maybe. It may have got put on, videotape or something.
I think it could have been on. It's possible that it could have been on.
Everybody turn your heads right now.
If the screen goes blank, you'll know what happened. So
I'm a tough guy. I can handle it. Yeah, that'll be good, Brian. I think it's always best to travel bees after the sun goes down, because if you have to stop for a short bit
or before it comes up,
there's not sun beating down on the entrances. If for some reason too, if you had to travel when it's warm, one thing that I would probably suggest to somebody, and this is going to sound really unconventional, is if you had to, I would pull into a car wash and I would spray them down with water. Obviously don't blast through the entrance and not look at the bees apart. I'm not talking power wash the bee off of the bee. Okay. That's not what we're talking about. That water helped to cool them down, because obviously they need water to cool down. But Brian, I don't think
don't go through the automatic car wash. You don't want the soap them.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh wow, look at that. Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
That's customization.
Yeah.
Customization. That door needed some character. It was it was boring. It was white. It needed a little character, and I helped it out. It looks beautiful now.
Yeah. You give some character.
I even added a little color in there.
Oh gosh.
You're welcome.
Lord help me.
You're welcome.
I'm telling you.
So Ruth had a question on here, and this is something I really do need to ask you guys. Does anybody have any advice how to take queen bees in an airport to Mexico? Anybody on the chat?
I don't think you can.
This is a question I've got from Jose coming up. If nobody knows, Jose's from California. So this is a question I want to ask him. But we have a gentleman in Mexico that wants a couple of queens, wants us to bring a couple down to him. And I don't know if I can mail them, if they can actually ride with us on the airplane. So anybody got any questions? I mean,
well, I would be curious if there's some international thing that you're not allowed to take bees over the border, because I know in Canada that's the thing, because Corey has to get all this, I think, special testing done before he can ship his queens up to Ian or to anybody in Canada that wants them. I know he was working on that like last year or something like that. So it may be something where you're not allowed to without special permits.
I would do just what they're saying. I would put how many you taking anyway? 2. I'd put them in my pockets and I'd keep my mouth shut. Play dumb.
I'm not lying to you. A lot of people said that.
You have to go through TSA and get the
X-ray.
I'm gonna see him in his pocket.
You'll serve a much better chance, I think.
Put them in your carry-on, your checked baggage.
Okay, Ricky, let me ask this: every time you've flown to Mexico, do they scan you? Do they do a body scan on you every time? I didn't think so. It's going to be hit or miss when they decide to pull you aside. And
the only time we got pulled aside was I had taken
a body scan. You have to stand on that thing and put your arms up.
You just say they answered his question.
What?
Ricky, I'm going to ask it again. Every time you go to Mexico, do they give you a body scan?
We kind of got one time, and we wasn't body scan, but we had a spear gun, and it wasn't the spear gun because it showed up, but actually in the spear gun case was a hair dryer, and it looked funny to them, so they kicked it out because of the hair dryer. So when we got there, it's right in the middle of the floor. Nobody's walking around it, and they're just watching. And I come pick it up, and the guy's like, "Hey, buddy, can we see what's in your bag?" And so then we had to actually show them what was in there. So
you should have just said no and then take off running and see how that works out. But be sure to make a video on that.
Yeah, it got across the United States, border. So don't you think they'd know what was in that bag?
Maybe you could play that card, right. If you are flying coach, maybe start yelling bees and start throwing them up in the air and then be like, I really need to be in first class where there's less people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it would work. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Well, here's the other thing I can always do, Tom, and you know how this goes. I can always say, hey, my wife told me it was okay.
And there you go. I like that. That is great. I like that.
You just go down
I mean, personally, I would see what the restrictions are for bringing
emotional support,
bringing anything into Mexico. Like it may, like Brian saying with Castle Hives, good luck with the fine. Like you really don't want to be pulled aside. Like, sorry, now you owe us 10 grand because he tried to smuggle 2 bees into.
I would be like, here, I'll just donate them to you.
Just act like a dumb gringo, and you're all good.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. I think I can get away with it. All they're going to say is, how those Americans are. They always try to get away with stuff.
Well, or what you could do is fly to Texas, go to the border, and just like toss them,
throw them over,
just toss them, and then go like mark them, and then go back and grab them.
I could probably get Spanky or Justin to do some kind of engineering with a tracker on them and have them fly there just that way. I think.
Fly them.
You don't have to do that. They're already flying gliders over that wall all the time. Just tell them, hey, I need you to take this back.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're gonna try to get them across, like your checked baggage is probably where I would put them in my checked baggage. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but if I was going to, I put it in my checked baggage.
Well, what I was told is most people say keep them on you because I guess they're less likely to get hurt or damaged, and your body heat will help them a little bit. So I don't know.
That just makes me.
It's bad. I'm on YouTube talking about this. I may get censored.
I know you're already being flagged. You realize that? You may as well not even try now.
That makes me think of a post office whenever I was sending that stuff off to Phil in Ireland. I don't know if he ever got it, but we sent him that hive tool Bob made, and I sent him some stuff, and there was honey in there, and she's like, you ain't trying to send a bee over, are you? I said, do I look crazy enough to be breaking the law, send a bee over?
Ricky, you shouldn't risk it anyway. You have too many hives to make. You have too many hives on order. So this conversation's moot.
Yeah.
Ricky's not taking any bees to Mexico.
Yeah. We'll just talk. We'll wait on this until I can get Jose on here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So I do want to take just a few seconds and talk about EpiPen. Now Lee actually, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I sorry to cut you off, but I got stuff early in the morning tomorrow, so I just wanted to thank you guys for all having me on here, and I appreciate everything. And anytime you want somebody to come on and chat at 8:00 on a Thursday, I would love to give more time.
I have one more question for you, Justin. You're going to be at the Be Alive conference in Slidell in September, correct? Are you on that list?
I wasn't planning on it.
No, I thought you were on that list. Maybe not.
If I'm on that list, then I don't know about it.
We'll have to have Lee bring it back up. I thought I saw you, but maybe not. Maybe I was just thinking of the Hyperama thing from last year again.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well, I appreciate everything.
Yeah, Justin, we appreciate you coming on, brother. Absolutely. And you're more than welcome to come on anytime. Just give me a holler. We'd be glad to have you back on anytime, brother. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, Justin Rigger, he's a really great guy, and I'm so glad to have him come on tonight. So
yeah, I have all his books because I, by trade as a preschool teacher. So when we'd talk about bees, I would use his books during that little theme week or whatnot. So, but yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a great guy. So anyway, Lee got me a practice pen. So just to go back a couple weeks ago, Ruth got stung, and she had her EpiPen, and she got so excited that she couldn't read the instructions. Now, I'm not going to bash her. There's only 2 instructions on here. This is a trainer for practice only. So I think the regular EpiPen had 3 on it. But it's good to have a practice EpiPen for somebody that knows they can go an anaphylactic shock, just because you never know what's going to happen. So this one, all you really have to do is pull the back tab off of it, and it's ready to fire. And it fired the pin out right there. So it's real simple. This one's really easy. There is different EpiPens out there, and they do function a little different. But if you're someone that might be around people that may go into allergic reaction, it's good just to review these EpiPens. And Lee, how much was this practice pen? Do you know? Can you let us know? There you go.
Oh, that's nothing.
$7. $7. And luckily, luckily Ruth got to me in time, and I was able to give her the injection. But she was so excited from, hey, my lungs are starting to seize up. Your vision's starting to go. So if you practice with it just a little bit, I think, I believe, it never hurts to practice these. And this is her regular EpiPen. It's a little different, but she took the case off of it. Let's see if I can get this open. Okay. She got the case off of it. Okay. And the only piece that she didn't take off was the tip where the needle was at. She thought that if she pulled this side out, then she was good to go ahead and stab. But she didn't take the needle end off of it. She didn't pull this piece off. And that's what allows, when you hold here, allows it to stab you and work. So, and I think this one only has 2, but her other pen actually had 3 instructions on it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So it's something good to review. It's just simple and easy, something you don't really think about until you have to have it. So a little practice EpiPen would be great. We appreciate Lee sending one to us to practice with. I know Ruth was very excited about getting one. She did practice with it, and it was funny watching her stab herself and jump like she was actually going to get stabbed by the pen. So I enjoyed it too. So
Morris Homestead, my doctor told me the exact same thing when we started beekeeping. I asked for an EpiPen just in case. It's like, well, we don't know if you're allergic. Let's just wait and see.
and I don't like that at all. And something else I want to say about it. That's that whole episode. And my hat's off to Lee, because when we was down there and he found out that she was going into anaphylactic shock, he called ahead to the hospital and said, "Hey, she's, you guys need to be there ready for her," basically. And so when we got there, they had a wheelchair, they had the EpiPen, they got her right out, they give her a shot, and they rolled right in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with Ruth this time here in the mountains of North Carolina, I called them and said, "Hey, we are on our way. She's going into anaphylactic shock. She has had her EpiPen." We get there and they're making her fill paperwork out.
Yep.
And I was getting extremely irritated. And the lady said, "Well, you go sit down over there and we'll have somebody come out and get you."
Yep.
And I looked at her and said, "Listen, if she falls over on the floor right now, it's going to be your fault." And she looked at me like, and don't get me wrong, she was a new lady. I could tell she was. We got sat down. As soon as the nurse got us in there, she was yelling for the doctor to get in there. So they knew that should happen. So if anybody ever gets, bee stung where you have to go to the hospital, make sure they know this person's got to get in there right away.
Mm-hmm.
So every little second matters with that situation. It's like a heart attack almost.
I can tell you one way to get the doctor's attention real quick.
What's that, Lee?
My first wife, she was having false labor while they were, her and her mom was shopping, and ended up at the hospital. And, well, I beat them to the hospital when they called. Anyway, they got in there and they gave her some different shots and everything. And doctor walked out. A few minutes later, her eyes started rolling back in her head and she quit breathing. Basically, whatever shot they gave her, she was allergic to. So I go running to the desk telling the doctor that gave her the shot, because he's sitting behind the desk, like doodling little drawings on a piece of paper. And I'm telling him what's going on. You need to get there. And he's like, "Okay, I'll be there in a minute." I'm like, her eyes are rolling back and she ain't breathing. I reach over the counter and grab him by the collar and pick him up and told him, "Nah, I think you'll get in there now." Yes, sir. So he made it in there. But that works every time.
I might try that next time. Yeah. So, Lee, before you get away, somebody else had a question for you here. Nope, that's not it. I started the wrong one.
Talking about Paul?
Yeah, Paul. Yeah.
I actually called a Lake After Hours clinic here and told them, instead of me having to take off work, go through all my insurance, miss time off of work, I said, "Look, can I just stop by there whenever I get off and get a prescription for an EpiPen?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what's it going to cost me?" They said, "Nothing. Just stop by and we'll have it at the front desk waiting on you." So I went up there. They gave me a prescription. I went to Walgreens and got it filled. And if you have a Walgreens, whether you got insurance or not, you can use their prescription plus little discount card they got. And I got 2 EpiPens for like $111.
Wow. That's awesome. I don't know how much we ended up paying for the new EpiPens that we got, but they are important to have if you keep bees. So that's my opinion about it anyway. So, and Lee, we appreciate you sending us that training pin, and that was awesome.
Anytime.
So, Tom, we heard about how Melissa's week's been going, but how's your week been going?
Oh, it's busy. There's never any downtime.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It helps keep me out of trouble, I suppose. Yeah.
So that's Tom's mom. That comment. That's funny.
Yeah.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, is that his mom? Oh, okay. Got mom on here. Wow, you better behave, Tom. I tell you, brother.
I know. She's seen Melissa being mean to me, so at least we got that.
Oh, she knows. She knows.
She knows now.
She knows better. She knows how he is.
Yeah. So obviously, Melissa said we've had a lot of rain, of course. The bees have still been doing well, just not bringing in. Yeah. The bees have still been bringing in a little bit of nectar, but I don't think a lot. They've been bringing in more pollen right now, which is fine because as soon as it dries out a little bit, we know that it will. we'll start getting a lot more nectar flowing, because there's a lot of plants out there right now that are producing flowers. Like, for instance, our white clover is in full bloom. Catalpa trees are full bloom. We still have privet that is blooming. Those are just a few sources that are great nectar sources for us. So those will definitely start to produce nectar as soon as we can get past just a little bit of rain. So we just need more of a balance, I guess, is kind of what we're looking for.
So Morris Homestead said something like way further up in the chat about they had a nuke swarm with a virgin. And I thought that was interesting, because we actually had that happen today. Like, as soon, literally, we were getting out of the truck, and like, Tom was out and he's like, Melissa, look at this. I'm like, I know, I hear it. We turn around, and one of those walkaway splits that we had made is swarming, and we're like, what in the world? They didn't grow that fast, that they need to swarm already. And so he starts kind of tanging on, there's a metal shed there, kind of tanging his hive tool on that metal shed to kind of get him shut down. Like, it just started. So he immediately closed the hive to keep everything in, right? And they were just kind of going to the cedar tree that was right near where that hive was, maybe like 10, 12 feet up in the air. And he started banging on this metal shed to kind of get them to settle. And I don't know that really helped much.
I don't know for sure if that was it, but within 5 minutes they were landing, and I watched them. They were in the air a little higher, and then they started migrating down a little bit. So I let them land and do what they were going to do.
But we had closed that entrance to like keep the queen in, because like I said, it just started. So like, well, maybe the queen hasn't gotten out yet. Let's shut it down so that we can go through it. So we shut it down, and we went and went through all the other hives. Like, we'll just let them chill out. We'll save that one for last. And then I know, why don't they read the books? Watch the YouTube videos. Anyway, right. So we come back to that one at the end, and we're going through it, and there is no brood, like, because it's just cat brood that's emerging, right? Because this was a walkaway split. So there's no young larvae, there's no eggs. And we're looking through, and there was how many cap cells were in that hive? Like 6?
6 or 8.
But we can hear piping. So we're looking everywhere for a queen, and like, we'll pull out a frame, look at it, don't see, and we don't put it back in the nuke. We set it to the side, right? Because we don't want the queen climbing on that frame that we've already examined. So we look at a frame, set it to the side, pull the next one. There's 5 frames in there. We get to the last one, and that's where, like, we determined, like, that's where the piping's coming from. We can hear it, but we cannot find. She was so dark. She was so hard to find on this comb. And so we're like, well, there's some emerged cells, because we saw a couple of cells that had emerged. Like, she's got to be on this frame somewhere. Let's just start opening these other queen cells, because we could tell they were about to emerge also. And we'll cage our, 500th virgin queen of the night. So anyway, he's opening the cell, and I'm looking at the frame, like, there she is. She's right there. And so we got her, and I put her in her own little container and set her aside so we didn't lose sight of her, because there was like 4 cells just on that one frame that she was on. So yeah, I think that they swarm. My point in all telling the story is, I think they swarmed with that virgin because they had so many other virgins in there. So and they had a frame that wasn't even drawn out all the way. So they had plenty of room in there to grow, but they had all these virgins. So I think they were just like, oh, we've got plenty more. Let's just keep, because bees' real goal is to repopulate, right? So I think that's what they were doing. They had all these other capped cells that were going to emerge within the next few hours. So they left with a virgin, and luckily we were there when it happened, and we're able to put that on hold. Now they have to stay in that hive, because that virgin's their only hope.
So I have a question for everybody on here. I know what I've heard. Does everybody think when a swarm starts to happen, do the bees follow the queen out, or the bees start to leave and the queen follows behind her? I want to know what everybody thinks. I know what I've heard, but I want to know what everybody thinks. And then I have another question that I want to kind of stump everybody with a little bit, because I just had an epiphany tonight when I was pulling queens out of cells. If you have a queen that has laid up an entire frame, these are all fertilized eggs, so they're going to be female. But for whatever reason, the colony decides the queen follows. Okay, the colony decides that they need to build, let's just say, either supersedure or swarm cells, or emergency cells. It doesn't matter, right? Do you think it's possible, or I guess let me phrase it like this. Do you think it's possible to have every queen that comes out look the same? You know how sometimes you can have queens that have abdomens that are really blonde in color. You can have some that are really dark, but you can also have some queens that are tiger striped. You know, they'll have those bands that go across their abdomen. Do you think that, generally speaking, that all the queens that they would build cells out of would all be the exact same color? Or do you think that they could vary in color? I want to know what everybody's thought is on that too. So to go back and answer the first question that I asked, that's the exact same thing that everybody's answering. The queen follows. I personally don't believe when they started to swarm, because I caught it really early and closed the entrance, I don't think a queen ever left. And the reason I say that is because when they got in the air, there wasn't a lot. By the time they landed on a branch, and it was only about 4 feet up the ground, there was only about, I'm going to say maybe a little over, no, probably about 2 fistfuls of bees. So not really a lot. Nothing that would empty out a really strong 5-frame nuke. And they kind of ended up collecting, and I kind of tanged on the barn 10 for a little bit. And then I stopped. They kind of landed. I thought, I'll come back to it. I knew where they were at. I had to deal with some other stuff, some other things first. When I went back over there to check it out again later, they were all gone. There was a few flying around the area, and I went back over to the entrance of the hive that I had closed up right away. They all were sitting at the entrance trying to get back in. There was, again, probably about 2 fistfuls of bees that were right there trying to get back in. So I'm about 98% certain that the bees that swarmed off did not have a queen, because I don't think that if there was a queen in there, I don't think they would have came back. It is highly unlikely that they would have came back. This is my opinion. I don't really have any kind of scientific studies that I've done to back this up.
Observational study
Just
this evening.
It's an observation that I noticed.
So with what you're saying right there, so just take this scenario that happened to me this week. It was on Tuesday. Got called. We thought the bees were coming out of this house. Got a call. I went out and checked it. There's big clumps of bees all over this house. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's swarms everywhere. You know, they've got virgins.
I've got comment when Ricky gets done, just so so we don't lose that. Yep. Go ahead.
And then so I went and got my equipment. I came back to help these folks out, and I knew this one clump definitely had a queen or a virgin in it. So I put the box up. First thing they did, start marching in. Right, I clipped the queen, and I left that on this side of the house. Well, I went to the other side of the house where they're going in 2 different locations, right? And I keep looking; they're not fanning, but there's tons of bees in that wall. I mean, tons of bees. I'm thinking, well, they've come out of there, but would they still not be fanning? So I went to the other side of the house, brought the queen from the other side of the house over, and they were actually going into this house. And all the bees come out of the wall and went into the box where the queen was at. So they picked that location to go into that house, but she never made it, never come across the top of the house. She couldn't fly there. She didn't make it there. And that's why they hadn't got to that's why they hadn't gone into the walls. So I left that box there. About 15 to 20 minutes later, all the bees were in the box and we left. So I always think that the queen's always kind of lagging behind.
Yeah. See, originally I always thought that the queen was the first one to go out of the hive and the bees followed her out. And I can't remember who I was listening to one time talked about that. And it wasn't even terribly long ago that I'd heard this. And I'm like, I had this thought in my head. I'm like, you know what? I had been told something one time and I'm like, you know what? That actually kind of makes sense to me. we're always thinking that the queen is always leading the pack, so to speak, and it really is not the case. Often it's a collective of the colony itself that's leading the way when it comes to deciding to swarm, deciding to supersede. All these sort of things. We always think it's the queen that is the one that is making the calls here, and it's really not. So yeah, it's always, understanding these things can always help you be a better beekeeper, because now you can understand which direction to go or how to manipulate something to get your desired result. The bees are always hardwired to do certain things, and you're just not going to change their mind because bees are bees. But as beekeepers, we can always manipulate. We can always make things seem like something to trick the bees into behaving a certain way. And I think that's where it's important to understand, bee biology, but also understand that there's certain hardwired things that you're not going to change their mind. You have to manipulate is kind of what it is.
So I want to go back to Russell's first comment there. It says different color fertile eggs come from the queen, which had multiple drones. So yes, you're correct, but the queens would come from fertile eggs. Well, no, I guess that is right. I was going to say that it would be her grandfather, but that would be the drones. The drones would be her grandfather. So yes, the from her mating with multiple drones, right? But if you get like different colors with the drones, that would be from the mated queen's father, I guess, actually.
Yeah.
Because those would be unfertilized. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Another thing I always kind of had in my head, you don't really think about it until you start to see it, and you're like, wait a minute. We had seen some of these queens that we had pulled out of these cells because we knew they were all ripe. I could tell which ones of the virgin queens that I had installed in these kind of walkaway splits, which ones took and which ones didn't based upon cat brood. If I seen cat brood going back in there, I knew that those were the queens that we had, the virgin queens that we had installed into there, and they actually took. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been seeing cat brood. All the other ones that did not take were having here just within the last couple of days. Those virgin queens were emerging, and particularly most of them were due to emerge today and or probably tomorrow. Some of them we just extracted a little bit early. Some of them were still a little bit too new, and obviously they weren't going to make it. But
Lee, I sent you a picture in the Dropbox of some queens, like 4 queens all laying next to each other. If you want to bring that up.
But yeah, I had pulled a couple of them that had a real blonde abdomen, which for me anyway, and I don't know how everybody else can pick up on these, but I can always see amongst fairly dark bees, I can always see the queen that stands out to me that has a blonde abdomen. Now, for whatever reason, and everybody might be different, when I look at a frame, and if I'm specifically looking for a queen, I actually don't look for a queen. I look for something that looks different, something that stands out that's different. And I usually look for the elongated abdomen is what I'm typically looking for. But sometimes that'll also be color that I'm looking for. So that's kind of how I try to pick out a queen, is I'm not looking for a queen, if that makes sense. But we had found that a couple of them that I had pulled out were had the real nice blonde abdomen. But I also found a couple of them that had that, I guess for lack of a better term, like a tiger stripe, which are really pretty, but I have the hardest time seeing them. Like Melissa said, there was one of them that was laying on the frame right in front of us that we could hear she was piping, and we kept looking across this frame. And now this frame we were looking at wasn't so compact with bees that you couldn't see comb. She was just laying right there in a submissive position so that the bees could kind of tend to her and probably groom her and things of that nature. But we couldn't see the darker tiger stripe ones, even though I think they look good. Those are ones I probably wouldn't want to keep, only because if I have to look for them at some point, I'm going to have a hard time finding them.
So when we were popping open those cells, most of them, like we harvested 30 virgins today. So most of them obviously were ready to emerge. But these 5 ladies were a little underdeveloped, not quite cooked just yet. And you can kind of see how like the developmental stages, like that first one on the right, like those eyes were just barely purple-eyed. The next one, you can tell that it's a little bit bigger. The eyes are much more predominant. You know, the body's a little bit, you can tell it's just plumped out a little bit more. The next one, the pigmentation's starting to come in. The eyes, again, you can't really see it too well, but the eyes are just a little bit darker. And then the next one over, you can just see the progression and how the body starts to elongate more. The eyes are larger, they're more predominant, darker, and more pigment. And then finally, this last one is definitely much more pigment. The top half is darker, the eyes are much darker.
That one has definitely started to harden off.
And that one was actually moving when I was taking that picture.
One other thing to note here too is to look at the progression of those. You can notice how the ones that are a little darker and hardened off, you can actually see the wing development, whereas you can't see wing development on the older pupae that are there on the right side of everyone's screen. So I thought that was kind of interesting when we were pulling those out. We had to get a picture of it.
And all those came out of capped queen cells. So this very last one was probably only a day or two from emergence, you know?
Yeah. Lee's kind of pointing those out there on the screen.
But yeah, I thought that was, and all of those actually came out of the same, no, the smallest one didn't, but 4 of those came out of the same nuke. So those are all out of the same nuke.
But out of that same nuke, we also had some that were already emerging. So my thought is this, and everybody can correct me if they think I'm incorrect, but if you look at the 2 white pupae that are on the far right, I think that those are probably within 2 days of emergence, maybe a little bit longer. And then the one on the far left, I think was within a day. I think probably by tomorrow, she may have gotten to a point to harden off enough that she may have been able to emerge after that. Does everybody think that I'm correct or wrong on that?
While they're commenting on that, Tom and Bliss, I want to ask everybody a question too. When you do your walkaway splits, and you guys talk about swarming, I've had that happen several times with my walkaway splits. Should I have gone back in that nuke and got rid of some of those queen cells? What do y'all think?
Well, it depends on how many cells are in it.
Yeah. Normally, I don't ever go back until, 9 days later. So
yeah. So these nukes were made. What was the date on these? 5/2. 5/2, I think, was the date that was written on the lids. I think it was 5/2. And today is what, the 16th?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that's when they
let me look back.
And we were winning them today, and we're pulling out the 500 gajillion virgins. So, I mean, you have that long until they emerge before they start going out on mating flights. So if you go in there, on day 10, you'll be able to see how many cells are in there, and then you can, leave them until, if they're capped, you can cut them out and incubate them, or you can just cut down. Typically, when we do a split or we see cells in there, we'll only leave 2 or 3. Because of, like I was talking about with Morris's comment, you don't want them to swarm off with a virgin because they have all these available cells in there. So anytime that we've left cells in a hive, we don't leave more than 3. Yeah, DC's kind of saying the same things.
Only because they can swarm with the virgin, especially if a bunch of them are starting to pipe. Clearly what we had seen today.
So what was the other question that you wanted everybody to answer to, Tom? You'd ask
I
another
was
question.
just curious
color.
as to the age of the pupae
Hold on.
that we had seen that were on that we kind of taken the picture of.
And even like if we do walkaway splits and we let them make their own queen, which we don't do that very often. We just did this because we didn't have time to go back and put queens and stuff and whatnot. So like, you know what, we're just gonna let them do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't find a queen in there and there's no cells anymore, but we see evidence that a queen has emerged because there's chewed out cells or whatnot, if we don't find a queen in that, we'll close it up, put it back together, and come back in like 3 or 4 days and recheck it, because sometimes those virgins can be hard to find. And then also, if she's out on a mating flight, we may have just missed her. You know what I mean? So if we think that there should be a virgin in there and we don't see one, we'll close it up and we'll give it another up to a week before we do anything about it. So
I have a question for Tom. Tom says, I think that was about day 12 or 13. Which one? You talking about the light or the white colored pupae, or the ones that were on the far left that look more developed that are starting to harden off?
dark and
Okay.
hardened.
So you're saying within 3 days?
Yeah.
And maybe I was off a little bit on my.
I would agree. I don't think they're as far as long as you thought either.
No.
No.
I need to look at a chart and figure that out, I guess, huh? So probably within that 3 days.
So the other interesting thing that we saw in our hive earlier this week was, I sent Lee some pictures about this too, as we were getting into one of our hives to check. I don't know if you were checking for the queen or what you were checking at the time. But Tom's like, look at this. They're uncapping all these cells. And so go to the very last with the
brood,
with the
to
cap,
the far right.
With the cap brood.
Yeah, the cap brood. Go to the, yep, right there.
So he's like, look at this. And I'm looking, and sure enough, the bees are all those open cells. The bees had uncapped those, and we're watching it for a minute, and we're watching them pull the cappings off, and we're like, what is going on? Certainly, there's not that many mites in here that they're that hygienic that they're just uncapping everything. We didn't know what was going on. So then we're kind of looking and at the other side of the frame, I think, and then that's what those other pictures are, Lee, if you can bring one of those up. So we see, that picture would be great. Yeah. So we see this, and we're like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know, because they're kind of shrunken down in there. And at first I'm like thinking that was maybe chalk brood or something like that. And then we kind of start looking it up. And luckily for us, Earl Hoffman, who is with Strong Microbials, he was actually coming to speak at our club meeting this past Tuesday. And so Tom had been having a conversation with him. He's like, hey, Earl, let me text you these pictures. And if you've never talked to Earl Hoffman, he is extremely, extremely knowledgeable. But I'm not supposed to give you the answer, apparently. But what is everybody's guess that is wrong with that larvae right there, and why they were uncapping it? Does anybody have any ideas of what was going on there?
They get too cold?
So here, I'm gonna preface this with this. This was a swarm. It was a second-year queen. They were in a double deep box. I'd given them a few pieces of drawn comb. They had been in there for probably
a couple weeks.
I'm going to say maybe 3 weeks. The brood pattern looked fine as far as the pattern itself. All the rest of the frames and the cappings looked great. The bees did not, I did not see anything like a deformed wing. I did not see any other issues that jumped out at me.
And this was specifically on one frame only.
This was specific on one frame. I checked all the other ones. I did not see any issue. There was pollen, there was nectar, so there was plenty of food, not just the carbohydrate, but there was plenty of protein in there too. So it wasn't an issue with that. Let me think about this. I can't remember now off the top of my head if I seen any brood frames that were directly emerging. Maybe I didn't go that deep into it, but I did. I might have been in kind of a hurry, so I snapped a couple photos and I didn't look really closely at it. But my first thought was chalk brood. Whenever I looked at it, now I realized you guys are trying to answer that. You're trying to answer a question off of just looking at a couple of pictures, so that's probably not really fair. But
they look dried out and would kind of fall out when you tip the frame over.
The ones that were uncapped, when you tip the frame up and just give it a slight jiggle and not even much, they would fall straight out of the cell. The ones that were uncapped. A couple people actually are nailing it. So the comment that's up there right now that Richard says cannibalizing it, he's 100% correct. I thought that was a fungi that was attacking. Again, I didn't look close enough at it. A fungi that was actually attacking the pupae, and I was completely wrong. That's actually half chewed. They're cannibalizing. You can see, and there's like 5 cells that go at a diagonal from the upper left to the bottom right on that picture. Those are only half the bees. The rest of them have been eating. They've been eating them. So they're pulling them out of the cell. They were cannibalizing those. And he's 100% correct. I never even picked up on it until I sent it off to Earl Hoffman. And he said to me, chilled brood. And I said, no way. I said, the population there was perfectly fine. He goes, they're not thermoregulating. And I said, why? He said, he goes, because I always had this idea in my head that bees will never leave brood for any circumstance. And that I think is mostly true, but it's not 100% true. And that would have had to have been what happened. Probably there was a couple nights that I didn't think about that maybe got a little bit chilly, and they might have been one of those frames that were spaced a little bit further out. Because again, we had some frames that were checkerboarding in there to try to get them to draw that out. Yes, they did have lots of food. There was plenty of wet nectar and there was plenty of pollen. Both sources were there. He says to me, chilled brood, they were not thermoregulating. And I talked to him in a little further detail, and he kind of explained to me. He said it's happened. He thought I'd first just made a recent split. And I said, no, this was into a double deep, but all those top frames were not drawn. I usually pull up a couple of brood frames in there to get them to kind of stimulate a little bit. But there was also food up there in that top box too. He said they thermoregulated. He said they didn't thermoregulate on that brood. And he said they probably clustered up a little tighter. And he said all it would have taken was a handful of hours for them not to keep that brood warm. And he said it would have all died. It said it was all real vulnerable. So that's exactly what and again, now that he had said all that, it made perfect sense to me. And I looked a little closer at that, and I could see that the top of those bees, again, they've been chewed out. So there's no heads on them, and they're probably down to their abdomen, and you can see a couple legs kind of left down in there. But yeah, chilled brood.
Chilled brood, and then they cannibalized it.
That's right. So I just thought it would be something fun to show, just to kind of test everybody a little bit. I know I was tested myself. I got it wrong. I probably should have looked more closely at it, but you know what? This is a lesson for me. And now I'm going to pay closer attention when it comes to, looking at things, because even though they're with the chalk brood, you wouldn't have done a lot of different things, because we have had a lot of rainy weather and less flight time. So sometimes I believe that can cause the chalk brood. But and that was where my that was kind of where I was going with that. But yeah, so I just wanted to test everybody and see what they could see by a couple pictures and a brief explanation.
That's pretty cool, and that's probably something you don't normally see, but maybe in the spring. So it's something you don't see throughout the season. It just early spring.
Yeah. Well, I think again, this being a good lesson for me, just basically goes to show that we all get stuff wrong at times, right? And these are good lessons for us
I'm always right.
that we can build off of. She looked at the frame too, and she didn't say that, so I'm just going to throw that out there too, guys.
She didn't have a chance to talk, Tom. That's what it was.
I know,
right?
I know. Mm-hmm. I was not inspecting that hive. I was getting secondhand information.
But she looked at the frame pictures too, just like everybody else did, and some of the folks in there got it correct.
No, we didn't pull any of the chewed brood out. You just put it back together.
I just put it back together.
We put it back together because at the time we thought it was chalk brood, so we just put it back together and actually put a feeder on it with some feed, with some it had Hive Alive syrup mixed in with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just put it back together with some feed on top to kind of, because that's how you get rid of chalk brood, is you just feed.
Yeah. So Shane says, I was thinking they were getting rid of them because of new resources. I am under the understanding, and again, if somebody has a different opinion, correct me. I am under the understanding that if there are no resources and the queen will still lay, what'll happen is they'll cannibalize the egg, not generally the pupae. So that's my understanding. Again, if somebody has a different opinion about that, I'd be curious to know that. It's always fun to see, little issues like that. I mean, it's not fun, but it's always a great learning experience. So if you've gotten an education off of something that you've seen, it wasn't a loss, right? Where's the?
Have fun tomorrow, JW.
Yeah, JW. Hope everything goes good for you, brother.
So I guess that means JW's not cooking dinner for me tomorrow night.
I know.
Yeah.
How sad.
Oh man.
How sad. What's Tom gonna eat, JW?
I know.
Because I don't cook on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
Today's Thursday.
I don't cook on Thursday either. Oh man.
Well, folks, I'm gonna close just a little early tonight. Again, I apologize. I have to get these nuke boxes done. Really want to get these splits that we're working on. I've got some grafts going on. I got to get boxes built for those grafts. So we'll cut this out a little early again tonight, and I do apologize. It's just so busy right now. I hope everybody understands. Let's go Big Chief.
So yeah. Big Chief is a restaurant near us, and it's really good. It's a really good restaurant near us. So that's Tom's mom.
Right. And everybody remember Two Rivers. I was supposed to get a breeder queen from him. I don't think it's going to happen this year, so I'm having to make some different arrangements. But remember him. He's lost about everything. I mean, that's a bad tornado that hit his place. So remember him. Tom, let's appreciate you guys being on here. I loved having our guest speaker on here tonight. And Lee, I'm glad you didn't get hurt, brother. And hopefully I'll get down and see Spanky coming up here pretty soon. So
there is a GoFundMe, I think, started by the guy who owns Easy Peasy.
Dan Long with Easy Peasy.
There is a
GoFundMe
for Shabu.
So if you go to I'm not sure where he might have it on his website, but I know if you follow Dan Long or Easy Peasy on Facebook or social media, he did put a link on there, if I'm not mistaken, for the GoFundMe. So if anybody was interested in donating to Shabu, I'm sure that would be much appreciated. I can only imagine what would happen, not only if you lost your home, but then you lost part of your livelihood, because it isn't like if you lose something with your bees, you can just magically make things jump back into
right.
This is something he's been working on over years. So this is not something you replace overnight. So only imagine losing your job and losing your house at your farm the same day. So I'm sure if somebody had felt led to do that, that would probably be very welcomed.
Absolutely. So, but we do appreciate everybody on the chat tonight. This is not possible without you guys. I really enjoy the comments. I like how you interact with the group. So, but anyway, we want to say God bless, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.